Cherries fans, and welcome to Back of the Net. My name's Sam Davis, and there's a familiar face sat next to me. It's Mark McAdam from Sky Sports. Mark, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Still alive.
Still alive. It's been a busy old time for you, working all hours, I presume.
This is it. Yeah, the end of the season. Everything comes to a climax, and a whole season of training, games, travelling, miles, money, sweat, blood, tears comes to fruition for 72 sides in the EFL this weekend. Of course, the Premier League goes on to the end of May. But yeah, a whole season of hard work comes down to this for a lot of clubs that are still fighting for promotion and relegation. And at Sky Sports, we cover it all, and we want to be right there involved with everything that happens. So it's great to be involved at this time of the year. But as you can imagine, it means that you're working a lot, and there's a lot of hours and a lot of mileage and a lot going on and a lot to keep across. But yeah, super exciting. This is what we're here for, isn't it? It's business end of the season, and this is what it's all about.
Absolutely. You probably recognise the venue. If you don't, you're probably a new subscriber. We're at the Pear at Parley, in the heart of West Parley. They do fantastic food and drinks. Pop down here for lunch. A Sunday lunch, by the way, is unbelievable. Check out their website. It's thepear@parley.com. We're sat here in the outside stables. They've got a huge garden, some woodland dining hearts, and I think I've even convinced Mark to have his dinner here as well. So.
Great plug.
There you go. Right, Mark, firstly, as a person with more than a keen interest in AFC Bournemouth, how good is it that we have, not mathematically, but we've effectively got the job done?
Yeah, I think when Gary O'Neill says in the press conference after the Leeds game that, he thinks that they're safe, you know that you're pretty much safe. If the gaffer comes out and speaks with that kind of language, you know that you're pretty much there. I don't think you'd see a side go down to the Championship with 39 points on the board. So it feels great, it feels brilliant, and for me, you always think about the club, you think about the people that work at the club, because relegation from the Premier League is not just you go down to the level below. There are so many more factors at play, particularly with members of staff, with finance, with investment, with training grounds, with academy. That all suddenly gets put under the microscope. Yeah. Oh, can we afford to go Cat 2? Can we afford to build what we'd like to do at the training ground? Do we have to scale back on this? Do we need to get rid of members of staff in the commercial department? And so on and so forth. So my first thought is always, great, the club can continue building on the amazing work that's been done by Bill already. And then secondly, you get excited about, right, we can welcome back Liverpool and Manchester City and all the big teams in the Premier League, and we can go toe-to-toe with some of the best sides in the world as well. And that's the second thing. But it's always the kind of the business commercial side of football that you think of first. Right, it means the club's going to be safe for another year, and we're going to be able to carry on building in the way we want to, and attracting the same types of players that we have done, and so on and so forth. But it feels great, and it feels particularly special this season because everyone wrote us off. And when I say everyone, everyone in the media.
We ourselves, I think, thought we were.
Yeah, there was a lot of fans, and even myself. You look at it and think, "Oh, this is going to be tough." Before when we got promoted under Eddie and that group in 2015, you were like, "Yeah, this group could stay in the Premier League." I believe that they're that good and that they play that type of football that would be conducive to success in the Premier League and be competitive, and they were. This was a slightly different group at the start of the season, different manager, different philosophy with the game, and you knew it'd always be difficult, particularly with the transition of ownership, but you always felt like, they could do it, but it would be much, much more difficult. And they've done it with, 6 games to spare, 5 games to spare, whatever it is. So, yeah, remarkable situation.
So a lot of Bournemouth fans were so ecstatic and happy at full time, and we were sharing.
And they should have been.
Sharing our joy on social media. And then about half hour later, we saw a tweet from you that, from my point of view, it maybe put a few people in their place a little bit.
Yeah.
Some took exception to it.
Yeah.
Some agreed with you.
Yeah.
Some completely disagreed, which is the nature of Twitter, of course.
Yes.
Firstly, why did you turn your replies off?
Because I didn't want to engage with abusive messages. And because I'm not very good with social media, little did I know that you could still send me a message with my tweet by quote tweet. Yeah, so that shows you how much I know about social media. But yeah, what I didn't want to do was just have a whole timeline of abuse, negativity, nastiness, positive comments. I just didn't want to engage with that. I kind of felt like I knew that what I would say would upset some people. And then what would come off the back of it was what I had a problem with in the first place. Yeah. Nasty comments and nastiness. And that's why that was the whole point of the tweet was, hang on a second, I don't want to be engaging with the kind of nastiness and the vindictive replies that I will get from some people, which is fine. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I spend a whole career asking managers, why did you make a substitution in the second half? What did you do with that formation? Why did you start with a back three? Why did you sign that player? Yeah. That's my job. So there's no problem with asking questions about football and engaging with positive communication and saying, what was this and what do you think about that and why did they play this play and why did they do this? That's what football's about. It's about opinions, and that's brilliant and that's part of it. But when it becomes abusive and nasty and vindictive and hurtful, that's not good for anyone in life, and it's something that I've never seen from Bournemouth fans up until this season, really. And I saw a lot, and for months and months and months, I'd been really upset by what I'd seen on social media. Was
bubbling over then a little bit in your head?
Yeah, I guess it has. It has been for a number of months. I've been really upset, and I've said to my friends, "No, I'm not going to get involved with Twitter at the minute because it's just really upsetting me." And I just think there's been such a sort of festering negativity for so long, and I think it was unfair. And it just got to a point where I think, well, yeah, of course, it's easy for me to tweet when Bournemouth are safe and say, well, yeah, told you so. But I also think it would have been wrong to tweet before that. And also, you had to let things breathe as well. You can't get upset off the back of a disappointing result or two disappointing results. You have to have a look at the bigger picture, and then you can start to get a feel for things.
Can you understand Bournemouth fans' frustration though when the form was so poor in sort of after Christmas, December and January? Because the stats don't lie. I mean, we weren't in an amazing place. We lost a number of games on the spin, and albeit there were injuries and the transfer window hadn't quite sort of completed. But you can see why maybe some Bournemouth fans were critical of Gary O'Neill. I mean, yeah. And also in the same breath, I would like to ask you did say some criticism that he's faced this season was uncalled for. Does it mean fans can't criticise, or...?
No, everyone can criticise. Everyone can have an opinion. Everyone can say, I think the manager's not doing a very good job, or I think his substitutions are rubbish, or the team formation doesn't work, or the decisions he makes during a game aren't affecting the outcome of matches. No problem with that. Of course, everyone can say that. But there's expressing an opinion on a manager, and then there's going over the line.
So when you're saying some criticism, you're talking about the clown photos and all that kind of stuff that I saw, which was very personal.
Unfair. I saw a picture of him and his face morphed into Osama bin Laden. I saw other things that were to do with his family. I saw other things that were to do with the clown photo and banners and O'Neill out and people changing their display picture to him and calling themselves O'Neill out and hashtag. Hang on a second. Give the guy a chance. Now, I accept there was the period, and I'm going to do it, here in front of me so I don't make mistakes because I don't want to make mistakes. But there was obviously a team that he inherited, not his team, that had been, in some senses, underfunded in the summer. Yep. But we all understand why. That wasn't because Maxim was saying, you're not having any money, I don't care. That was because Bill Foley was taking over. And there was a transition period, and it just happened to unfortunately fall from one season to the next. By the way, that same under-equipped group of players is 39 points into the Premier League, so they were okay. So that was that. He inherited that group off the back of a 9-0 defeat. Went unbeaten for 6 games, kept clean sheets in that period, scored goals in that period, and made substitutes and tactical changes during games that affected the outcome of matches, some positively, some negatively. If we'd held on against Spurs and held on against Leeds and hadn't had another 6 points on the board or another 4 points on the board, then the whole picture would have looked so different. And they were just defining moments in games. that you can't really judge a manager. You know, Gary O'Neill's not on the pitch when we go from 3-1 to 4-3 at Leeds. What more can the manager do at that situation? He has to accept the lads have, you know, made mistakes, we'll learn from it, and you move on and so forth. Obviously, there was a poor run of results. Everton games at the end of the first phase of the season before the World Cup, you know, 2 brilliant performances, you know, lots of goals, clean sheet in one of them. You go, well, fantastic, brilliant. And then obviously there was a decision. Now, Bill Foley is the owner of the football club and has been presented with 2 options for the new manager. One was Gary O'Neill, one was Marcelo Bielsa, as we all know. And they took a long time. Bill took this wasn't a decision made overnight. This was a decision made over essentially a week, but a long weekend where they were deciding what was the best thing to do for the football club. Gary had been there, he understood the players. I think, in my opinion, he'd earned the right to show that he could keep the team in the Premier League because they'd gone unbeaten for 6 matches. They'd shown really good signs of, style of football, and everything was going well. And Bill Foley decided, having met, I presume met with Marcelo Bielsa, that Gary was the right option. But I know that wasn't an easy decision. It was a tough decision, and they're 2 very different managers with completely different philosophies. Marcelo Bielsa would have been really expensive and no guarantees that he would have kept the team in the Premier League. He would have brought in his own staff, the philosophy in the transfer market would have changed, other people's work would have been left redundant. So it wasn't just a simple, this is the decision we make and this is what we do. So, and then off the back of the World Cup, and that's obviously where people are getting upset with form and things, and I get that. And there was, first of all, I'll just go through it quickly. Newcastle, Champions League team finishing 3rd, no right to beat them, 1-0 away from home.
Well, I think Adam Smith own goal as well.
Yeah, so there you go. What's that? That's unlucky. That's unlucky. Chelsea, 2-0, all right, fine. Beaten by a team that's spent, hundreds of millions over the time.
One thing I will say, fans and Tom and a few others have pointed this out, that Chelsea are awful though at the moment. We probably should have.
Oh yeah, of course. No, yeah, they're not having a great season. We're on the same number of points as them as we record this. Yeah, but it's still Chelsea. It's still a big side with players that are worth 100 million each. Let alone free transfers that we play with. Players that are worth a lot of money, players that are internationals, players that have done exceptional things for a number of years. The Palace game I was at, poor performance, really poor performance. That wasn't good. Then Man United, Burnley, again, not great, but Burnley have done really well. We're best team in the Championship by a yard mile, the most up-and-coming, promising young manager in Vincent Kompany that's been linked with a lot of big jobs. That was a poor performance, but it's a cup game, it is what it is. And then you've got Brentford in that run of 6 defeats. Brentford, not great. The same Brentford that have beaten Manchester United, the same Brentford that have beaten Manchester City, the same Brentford that have beaten Arsenal and played exceptionally well. They're in the top 10. They're having a brilliant campaign. Yeah. So, you have to accept they were the better side. And by the way, look at the bench for that team. Sadie, Michael Gonzalez da Costa, sorry, I probably said his name wrong. And other players that are on, young players that are in their 18s, Daniel Duajay. Yeah. These are players that are 17 years old on the bench in the Premier League. So when Gary O'Neill has to try and turn things around and go, right, look at my bench, and he's got 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Hang on a second, obviously the same, it was an injury to Neto. He's been arguably the player of the season. And I just think in that moment, you go Forest 1-1, disappointing. Brighton again, 87th minute winner. What can you do about that? That's unfortunate away from home at a side that at one stage 3 or 4 weeks ago were pushing to try and get in the Champions League. Arguably one of the best footballing sides in the division. And then you win at Wolves, and then so on and so forth, and we go on a positive run. But in that period that I've mentioned there, I think you look at the bigger picture and how many games are you entitled to win, or should you win? Look at the bench that Gary O'Neill has got to select from to try and affect things. Massive injuries to key players. And you just go, tough run. A couple of poor performances in there. But are the lads still playing for the manager? Yeah, it looks like it. You can tell when a team's not playing for the manager.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, let's just let things breathe a bit.
Do you sense there's a bit of entitlement with some supporters? Because we've been a club that's been lucky to have mainly success over the last 10 or 15 years, really.
Yeah.
It's been a steady rise since -17. The
Yeah.
odd blip, of course, with relegation.
Yeah.
And a lot of our newer supporters are used to success and seeing a team that wins most of the time.
Yeah.
So to then have a run of results amid the backdrop of a multi-million pound takeover where we did have this professor of football lined up, and then we ended up with, and I'm not quoting this myself, but a PE teacher. That's the phrase that was being used. I don't think they did it, I don't think a lot of people did it in a negative way, but I know some people would have taken that as a negative thing. But it was just a comparison, because in comparison, he hadn't really managed. He'd been, like through the youth setup. But and then to sort of lose all those games, albeit with the reasons that you've said, can you maybe forgive them for, this is a new feeling here?
Yeah, of course. I understand it. You want to be successful and you want to see your team successful. And it depends on how you measure success. Is success finishing, in the top 10 of the Premier League? Is success playing a really attractive brand of football? Is success having a well-run, stable, financially sound football club that's there week in, week out?
Yeah.
Because you speak to, you can use all, you speak to Huddersfield fans who were in the Premier League for 2 seasons, and suddenly they're scrapping at the bottom of the Championship. You speak to Swansea fans, no money to invest, and they have to try and rebuild. You speak to Norwich City fans, and what type of a club are you? What do you want to measure yourself on? And for me, and this is just my opinion, 17th in the Premier League is amazing. If we can stick to the core principles of young, good, exciting players, attractive brand of football, and we can basically go and score goals and be fun. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see my team with young players that are exciting to watch, that score goals. And in that, you're going to lose games. We could go and get a manager that comes in and, 4 at the back, 5 at the back, win 1-0, be ugly, scrappy, pump the ball forward, have big 6'5" players in there. I don't want that. I'd rather we got relegated playing an exciting brand of football than a brand of football to try and stay in the division. Yeah. For me, that's not exciting. But that's my opinion. That's just sort of how I feel about the situation. I'm so privileged. I get to watch so much football, like every, over 100 games a season live, minimum. Sometimes I can, this week alone, I've got 5 games live. 3 in the Premier League, 1 Championship, 1 League 2, I think it is. But yeah, so I get to see a lot of football, and I get to meet a lot of football fans, and I know that I would rather see an exciting style of football than a winning style of football. If you can get both, amazing. But for me, that's just my feeling on things.
Why do you feel as though some fans, because obviously there have been numerous players over the seasons that have been maybe scapegoats, you could call them.
Yeah.
Steve Cook's had it, Adam Smith's had it recently, also Chris Mepham as well. And with the abuse that Chris Mepham got, that was pretty vile as well. But we seem to learn quite quickly about that. But for some reason, we forget very quickly, and all of a sudden these memes are being posted. What can fans do next time we're in a bad run? Because, or do you think this time, because Gary O'Neill's proved himself a little bit, he's got credit in the bank, so to speak. So hopefully there won't be that kind of short fuse.
Yeah, and I cannot understand why someone would want to go on social media and have a pop at another human being, like in a negative, vile,
Was he aware of it? Was Gary aware of all these kind of things? Or not? Do you think he's shielded a lot from it?
No, I think he's aware. I think you're always aware. I think, the managers that say they don't look at the table or don't read the papers or don't look at social media, they might not, but they're aware of the things they need to be aware of. I think you're always aware. I can't, when someone, for example, if you employ people in your business and they're not doing a very good job, would you go up to them and start berating them? Or would you start posting stuff online about them? You wouldn't. That's not going to be good for your business, is it? No. And Bournemouth Football Club, AFC Bournemouth, is our business. It's everyone's business. So let's, under 99% of the circumstances, let's support the guys. Let's give them, let's cheer them. Let's make them feel like they haven't made a huge mistake that's cost a goal. Get behind them, make them feel better about things. Show that this is a community environment. This is a supportive environment. This is an inclusive environment. This is an environment where you can make mistakes because that's life. They're human beings, but your fans have got your back, you know? And let's be honest, if a player is playing badly week in, week out, guess what's going to happen? The manager's going to drop him. 99% of the time, the manager's going to go, he's not doing a very good job. He's going to get me sacked. I'm going to drop him. He's on the bench.
When you wrote that tweet, was it as a fan or as a journalist?
I suppose probably a bit of both in there, really. Actually, no. Do you know what? It was a human being, because that's what has upset me. That's what upset me was that it was the negativity and the nastiness of it.
Did you regret anything? Do you regret any wording of it? Really?
Do you know the one thing I should have said was this isn't aimed at all fans, and this isn't aimed at criticism. Everyone's got the right to criticise. It's just the nastiness and the trolling, and and the PE teacher comments, and give the guy some respect. I like to find out what's going on. I speak to players on a weekly basis. I speak to people at the football club on a weekly basis. I speak to people at loads of football clubs. Yeah. And all the noises that I were getting about Gary O'Neill was really, really cares, really hard working. You speak to his wife every day. He gets back from football and he's in his study going through clips, going through videos, going through training plans, going through sessions. How can I improve? What can I do? All of the stuff that he does on the training pitch, all the stuff he does with players, was all kind of like, I'm thinking, well, no, okay, he's doing all the right things. He's working really hard. I'm not hearing negativity. I'm not hearing nastiness from within. I'm not hearing, he's not lost the dressing room.
Yeah.
The lads aren't playing for him. They don't like his training sessions. There's been this disagreement, that disagreement. This has happened. I'm not hearing any of that. So I'm thinking, well, okay, let's let this breathe.
Do you feel as though this? I mean, because in my opinion, me and Tom were talking about this the other day, and it was almost like parts of that tweet were written maybe pre-April, or maybe because through April, a lot of fans have thawed, and a lot of fans have grew to, and we were actually singing his name for the first time that I've heard this year.
Yeah.
So we're all in unity, but your tweet was a little bit divisive in some ways amid this kind of unity that the fans are feeling. But are you just maybe trying to drive the message home to support us next time? Just have a think about it?
I just think so, yeah, because your actions might get someone sacked. And they've got a family and kids and a livelihood, and I think if every single football manager knows if they don't get results they'll get sacked. That's simple. We all know that. We understand that. But I just think that there's no right for you to be calling for a manager to get sacked without just looking at the bigger picture. Let things breathe a little bit. All right. Look at Leeds. At the time of recording this, about to appoint the third manager of the season. And guess what happened with, everyone wanted rid of Jesse Marsh. Javi Gracia's come in, not worked out. You could argue Sean Dyche's not worked out. Getting rid of Brendan Rodgers, not worked out. And then you can turn around and say, well, look at Roy Hodgson at Palace. Look at Julian Lopetegui at Wolves. That's worked out. Just because you change the manager doesn't mean that it's going to definitely be fine and everything's going to be rosy. Southampton have changed the manager 3 times. Ralph Hasenhüttl, Nathan Jones, Ruben Sellers. Guess what? They're still bottom of the league. And stop laughing. But there's and I know for a fact, Richard and Neil and everyone at the club, Bill Foley, would have looked naturally. What do we do if things continue in a negative way? What's the right thing to do? And like so many clubs in the Premier League this season, who is the obvious person out there to come in and survive? Keep the team in the Premier League and the survival champion. There isn't a lot of good quality managers out there that you go, right, he's the man, he's the one.
I think a lot of supporters were looking initially at the length of the contracts, the 18-month contract initially, and thinking, well, do they have much faith in them? Because surely if you have, you would tie him down for longer. And I think that combined with the poor results made some Bournemouth fans, maybe a lot of them, think, are the board even sure about him? But are you saying that when he was picked, it was done on, not being the easy option. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was literally you had 2 CVs and then they thought, actually, this is the guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't the easy option.
No, I think, look at the managerial candidates that were available at the time. And I couldn't come up with a list. I couldn't come up with a list of people that I thought that would be right for Bournemouth. I thought the Bielsa thing ticked all my boxes in my head, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, from a footballing philosophy perspective, yeah, absolutely. And Gary obviously was a situation that he was in the building, he knew the players, he was a very highly respected and regarded coach from Liverpool. He's come in and worked with Scott Parker, but it wasn't the easy option. I don't think they just went and thought, well, that would do. And I actually think 18 months was a sensible thing. They gave Nathan Jones a 3.5-year contract. Yeah. That was a huge gamble. Yeah. Huge gamble. Manager that went to a big club at Stoke, didn't work out. He's only ever been successful at Luton, and very successful, by the way. But he was going into the Premier League, and they gave him a 3.5-year contract. Now, ultimately, it doesn't matter. You could have a 10.5-year contract. Yeah. If the exit clause is 12 months' pay, it doesn't matter about the 9.5 years. He gets 12 months' pay. People get obsessed with 7 years and 3 years and whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about the whatever it costs to sack him. That's the only thing that matters in a contract. And 18 months, I looked at it and thought, well, that's sensible. Why would you commit 3.5 years or 2.5 years to a manager that might be successful, might not be successful? The fact they've given him the job tells you that they actually believe in him. They're not going to appoint someone thinking, this is going to be a disaster, isn't it? Of course not. They're going to appoint someone who they think, well, actually, he's got potential. We've seen him coach. We know his characteristics. Richard Hughes played with him at Portsmouth. He was working at Liverpool with good quality young players. He's come in and been a good coach. All right, let's see how he gets on. And, that was a situation. So I just think too many clubs dish out way too long contracts, too bigger contracts for too long a time, and then get caught out by having to pay them up. So let's just be sensible. 18 months. If he keeps in the Prem, he gets another year. Fine, fair enough.
You know what? A lot of Bournemouth fans are pleased and thankful. They're breathing a sigh of relief. After, I can't remember who did the interview. I don't know if it was Zoe or I don't know if it was Paul Belverson. It might have been Paul. The interview with Bill Foley.
Yes.
And that quote, "We won't get relegated." And we were looking at that thinking, oh my God, is that? That feels like a naive thing to say for a new owner of a football club, because not many chairman would ever say that.
No.
And he said it, and we were all thinking, okay, this ain't looking good. And especially after January, we were thinking, we're going to be ridiculed here publicly. But I'm so glad for him it worked out.
Yeah. But do you know something? Why on earth would anyone invest in excess of probably £200 million to date now, in terms of the commitment to buy the club and the commitment in the transfer window in January? Why would anyone go in there and go, yeah, we're going to get relegated? Why would you even have that mindset? Yeah. Why would you even? Now, he was very ballsy and ambitious by saying we won't get relegated.
I think he might have mentioned Europe at one stage as well, but we'll park that conversation for another day.
So yeah, why would he be negative, right? Because there's too much negativity around. He's been positive, he's been ambitious, he's shown his faith in himself, his staff, the manager, the players, the club. We'll stay up. I've got no problem with that. And the people in the media made a big deal of it. You don't say that, Christ. All right, he said it. But you either look at him and think, well, he's a fool, or you look at him and think, I love your ambition. I love your confidence. I love your belief in yourself and what you're doing here at the football club. And maybe that could be looked upon as what it, is what it was. Will Bournemouth get relegated from the Premier League one day? Yeah, probably. Will they get back up there? Hopefully. And that's the thing. It's the divide between the Championship and the Premier League is such now that I think, genuinely, when you've got Luton and Millwall in the playoffs at the moment, and Coventry, who didn't play a home game for the first however many months, in and around the shake-up to get promoted, and a club in Sheffield United hemorrhaging money, and we're under a transfer embargo, getting back to the Premier League, it shows you that with a sensibly run club and the right people, you've got a far greater chance of getting back than you've ever had, providing that when you come down, you're sensible with the money you get.
And a word for Neil Blake and Richard Hughes, because there have been people that have often criticised them for the decision of hiring Gary O'Neill, but also some recruitment previously. But I think if they watched Match of the Day on Sunday night, they would have been having their feet up with a with a glass of wine thinking, oh, hello, I've done well here, because it's being highlighted how good the recruitment's been. But they've been under a lot of stick. Even people that have appeared on this channel have given them some stick. But it's fair to say that we're in a fairly good position, on and off the pitch, really. Yeah. It seems to be the case.
This is, and I've said this a number of times, Bill Foley wouldn't buy a club that had lost huge amounts of money and was losing huge amounts of money. He's not silly, you have. So when we came down from the Premier League, we didn't spend a lot of money, which, unfortunately Jason Tyndall was the manager at the time and he was the one that suffered there. We made a huge sum of money in the transfer window. And we kept the squad together essentially and had a good crack at it, got into the playoffs, got beaten by a better side, and that was that. And the following year there was a bit more investment. We got up in the following season. So, that shows to me a really well-run club. The fact that someone has bought the club shows that it was financially sustainable and they looked at the numbers because that's what they do. They do a lot of due diligence and look right through the business and go, is this sound and safe and sensible to invest and buy? So therefore, I've seen bits and bobs and I've been told bits and bobs by my friends. Neil Blake's earning this amount of money. I don't care what Neil Blake is earning, right? He's done, from my perspective, an amazing job since he walked into that football club, in terms of driving up commercial revenues, making the place a better place, supporting the manager, putting in structures and staff and things that make Bournemouth a much better side and a much better club and a much more well-rounded club. And he kept them in the Premier League. It was a part of the process to keep them in the Premier League for 5 seasons, and has negotiated with Richard and the other board members great deals over the time. He sold players and made profits. I don't care what Dom Solanke earns. I don't care how much Bill Foley earns, or Jeff Mostyn, or Neil Blake, or Richard Hughes, or any of the players, or the tea lady. I don't care. It's a business that turns over hundreds of millions of pounds. It's in the most exciting sports league in the world that generates billions of pounds all over the world, and if he doesn't do a good job, guess what? He'll get sacked. And if Bill doesn't think he's doing a good job, he'll get rid of him. And if Maxim didn't think he was doing a very good job, he would have gone. So I can only speak as I find, and I can only speak from the facts that you see. Of course, they've made mistakes. The club, the one thing that I think, the club should have had a better legacy for the first 5 years in the Premier League. Yeah. We didn't. And I understand why. Because they were trying to give Eddie all the tools to be competitive and stay in the Premier League. And there are transfer windows that I think that they've not operated very well in. And I think they have made mistakes and they have made bad signings. And I don't think we've spent money wisely. And I've said that publicly. I think some windows have been poor windows. I don't just think that they're amazing. I do think they've made mistakes. But again, you come back and you look at the bigger picture and you look at what they have done and the things that they have done, and you then kind of say, well, this is going to be a 7th season from 9 in the Premier League. Unbelievable achievement. The business is successful. They're making money. They're pressing ahead with the training ground. They're trying to take the academy to Category 2 status, which is brilliant, which means that our young kids will play a better quality of opposition, which means that they'll be getting better football. And the stadium is something they're talking about, and and everything else around the club. You go, right, okay, so they're doing all the right things. And just on the transfer window, I know, this is the thing. Everyone's saying the January transfer window, the summer transfer window when Maxim was leaving and Bill was coming in was terrible and no money was spent and it was a disgrace. And Neto, free transfer. How good has he been, by the way?
Very good, yeah, very good.
Senesi, not a huge amount of money, been a big part of the team this season. Marcus Tavernier, unbelievable season. Goals, brilliant. Unfortunately for him, he's been injured a lot. Ryan Fredericks, obviously didn't work out so far, injured, one of those things. Jack Stevens, loan. And Joe Rothwell, free transfer. Yeah, the backbone of our team right now, 3, 4 of those players?
Do you reckon Jeff will stay?
Probably not. And then in January, of course, again, another really successful window.
People are going to be clinging on to what you just said there.
What's that?
Jeff.
What?
Probably not.
Probably not. Sorry. Do you know what?
He was bashing the club badge after he scored his goals. Tom loved that bit.
If he stays, great. If he doesn't, he doesn't. You know, it's one of those things. I think it's one of those rare moments in football where I guess just comes to its natural end. You know.
You've got a dampener on this whole thing now.
Just me being on here is damp enough.
A lot of no, not a lot. Some Bournemouth fans, because you speak very positively about the club.
Yeah.
Some people see you as almost an unofficial club spokesperson. Would you argue against that?
Well,
have you criticised the club previously?
Oh yeah, of course I have. First of all, right, why would anyone want to go around in life being negative? Like, that's no good. Life's too short, you know. Do I want to go around slagging everyone off and talking about all the negatives and the bad things?
But it would affect your relationship with the club, surely, if you were being overly negative.
If I was being overly negative, yeah, of course it would. But then, you know, there's a balance between going, right, hang on a second, look at the bigger picture. You have to look at the bigger picture. I've spent 23 years of my life working in football. I worked for the football club. I worked in the club shop. I worked in the ticket office. I went and helped Dave Edwards do the divots after match days when he worked on his own with Johnny Harris. Worked in the media department. My first job at the club was £4,000 a year, 20 hours a week, plus match days. Right? You can do the maths about how much I was paid. You know, and then there was a number of months where I didn't work for free. I worked for free because they couldn't afford to pay me. And then I went full time. And in that period of time, I was paid 3 times in full on time as well. And when they went into administration, 2008, I was 23 years old, lost £12,000. Imagine a 23-year-old living at home with his mum, losing £12,000. That was everything I had. I lost a huge chunk of money. And I knew that when I went to work every day, I probably wouldn't get paid, but I kept going to work. But again, so I've got this huge connection with the football club, and I respect everyone at the football club. I also understand how hard it is. You know, I worked at the football club. Sean O'Driscoll got the team promoted in 2003 and had a load of letters saying he didn't do things right, but they got promoted. In football, you will always find someone that will criticise you for the work you do and the things you haven't done, no matter how successful you are.
You speak about the dark days there. You speak about I mean, and one thing I struggle with is when I see people on Twitter and other forms of social media that say, well, like if you think things are bad now, wind back 15 years ago. But then there is a balance to be had, isn't it? Because we've got so much money now and we've got a squad that's really valuable. We've got some excellent players. Arguably, I think we should be, with the squad that we've got, be at the higher part of the lower, so like between, you know, a 10th and 12th maybe, I don't know. But so it's all contextual, isn't it? But then equally, I suppose you have to be mindful of the fact that, we were losing 2-0 at home to Barnet and things were really bad and players weren't getting paid. But like, where's the balance?
Look, talk to Everton fans. You know, this is a team that's been at the top table of English football for a number of decades. And they might get relegated to the Championship. And owners have invested £500 million over the last few years. Just because you invest money doesn't give you a divine right to be where you want to be. You have to get everything else right. It has to be a structure and a process and a manager and players and a fan base and everyone that comes together and is positive and you're all cheering for the same goal and you're all supporting each other and, you know, this is a family. We're a family and we're all part of it. And, you know, I love going to Fratton Park because when the Portsmouth fans are cheering at their loudest is when the team is losing. And that's something that I've always felt when you go to Fratton Park.
That's one thing that Bournemouth fans don't really do. But then I think that's because we've had so much good football. Maybe we feed off that more now.
Yeah, maybe. You know, I grew up with, you know, we've got Wade Elliott and, you know, those kind of songs ringing around the vitality.
You going to finish that chant?
He was, by the way. He's done all right at Cheltenham.
He's done all right.
But yeah, so you're in that situation. But I just think, hang on, like, why do we have to be negative? Why do I have to be negative? You know, if I go and do an interview with a Premier League manager, Mikel Arteta, or whoever, Frank Lampard, and the first thing I say is, "Oh, you've lost 5 games in a row. It's not very good, is it?" Well, all right, yeah. we know. But why don't you try and be positive, put a positive spin on things? And don't get me wrong, at some stage, if things aren't going well, performances are bad, we're not scoring goals, we're not the players aren't playing for Gary O'Neill, things are heading in a rubbish direction, then fine, yeah, I don't agree with the tactics, it's not going right, this isn't acceptable, blah, 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 blah. And then he'll get sacked. But do you not think that the owners are thinking exactly the same way as the fans?
Yeah.
Every single time they will be, every board meeting they'll discuss players, recruitment, who are the managers to watch, who are the ones we need to look out for, what do we do if it goes badly? They will be constantly evaluating the business and going, right, who is going to come in next? Because you can rest assured that Bill Foley, Neil Blake, Richard Hughes and anyone else at the top table, Jim, will be going, right, if this isn't working, we are about to lose hundreds of millions of pounds. So they are at the front of the queue when it comes to getting things right and making decisions. But sometimes you just have to step back and go, right, let's look at the bigger picture. And in this whole period, there was not one point where I felt like the players weren't playing for the manager. The results were poor and they had to change. But judge him on players that he recruited in January. He was a part of the process. Judge him when everyone is fit and back, and judge him over a slightly longer period of time. Gary O'Neill. And that's eventually what happened.
Yeah.
They signed 6 players, spent 75 million. Dom, Neto, Tavernier back in the squad, strength in depth, and a prolonged period of time. Guess what? 39 points.
I've sat in front of Neil Blake just in the stands, and have sort of looked over my shoulder at times during certain moments in games. I've only sat in the main stand a couple of times, but anytime I have, I've had a good seat. And he's a passionate man.
Oh, he's so passionate.
But you wouldn't know it because you don't ever hear from him. The only person you do hear from outwardly really is Jim Favola at a high level. And you can speak about Neil Blake if you like, but do you feel sorry for him in a way that he had to deal with as much as he did? I think I actually sent an email on the AFCB pod that he was on, the official pod. I sort of said, did you understand the heart on sleeve nature of football fans when you took this on? Because he was getting it in the neck, and for some things that weren't in his department. Yeah. But what do you say to people like that have made themselves so easy to communicate with on Twitter? He's made a rod for his own back in some ways, hasn't he?
Do you know what? There's some owners do no media, no communication, shut the doors up, not interested, and some do loads. And invariably, when you do media and you do interviews and you make yourself accessible, people will ask you difficult questions, and you can't have a conversation with everyone about everyone's perspective on things. And you get things wrong and you get things right and you make decisions. And I think ultimately, Neil, Richard, Bill, Jim, whoever, they are making the decisions that they feel are the best things for the football club. They're paid very well, fine. It's a business that generates a lot of money. And again, if they get them wrong, then they suffer. And Maxim suffered when they got relegated. And I don't have there's no right or wrong thing. When you do media and then stop doing it, people say, why has he suddenly stopped doing it? If you do tweets and things and engagement on social media and then you suddenly stop, people say, oh, he stopped talking to us now. You only talk to us when we're winning, you don't want to talk, and so on and so forth. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to deal with that side of things. I can only talk from what I see, and I don't have an open door policy with Gary or with Neil or Richard. I've known these people a long time. I've worked with them professionally. I get a little bit more of an insight than perhaps the fans do, but I don't. I don't phone them up, and I don't have access to them in that way to phone up and say what's going on, what's happening, why is this, why is that. I just think the bottom line is they try and do the very best. Does Neil Blake want to be the chief exec of a championship club? No. Does he want to be a chief exec of a team that's pushing for Europe, bringing in massive revenues, hugely successful? Of course he does. Yeah. He wants, do you think Gary O'Neill wants to be wants to get sacked? No, he wants to take Bournemouth as high as he possibly can. And probably put himself in the shop window to get a much bigger club. Yeah. He wants to be successful. Everyone wants to be successful. Not one single person would go into that place and go, I don't mind. I hope we get relegated. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't enjoy it. Of course not.
And in terms of Jim Favola, Speaking as a fan, the changes that he's made in and around the stadium is fantastic. I know we're limited by the size, but what he's done in terms of dressing the stadium up, also the pre-match atmosphere as well, which I think's improving. And even these rally towels, rally flags. I didn't know what they were at first. Was it a flannel or is it a bar mat? But
I was wiping my phone with it.
Yeah, why not? But it was, it's good to see these little sort of changes being made. So it's sort of clear to see, as well as the training ground investment, all that kind of stuff, that there is something happening off the pitch, whereas previously we didn't see that so much. So Bournemouth fans, they're in a good place.
Yeah, I think I've yet to meet Jim, by the way. I see things on social media and I hear good things. You know, I speak to a lot of people that are connected into different departments in the club, and everyone says really positive stuff about Jim, about Bill, about what they're trying to do, the direction they're going. Everyone speaks really highly of the ambitions and trying to do things in the right way. And I think that's brilliant. You know, unfortunately, the Vitality isn't ours. We lease it, which is obviously from a legacy gone by. But they're trying to make it the best environment they can. They're trying to improve the match day experience. They're trying to, put things in place that make it a better, game to go to for fans, and that's all you can hope for. Again, I would always rather I had a AFC Bournemouth to support than a club that went and spent beyond its means. I've been associated with too many sides, Portsmouth, Southampton, Bournemouth, that have gone into administration, gone bust, lost money, and the fans just fighting for a right to have a team to support. I would always rather that they thought about things financially and sustainably before they thought about the ambition of it all. And I think you've got people in place now that are really they've got that at the heart, and their agenda is we grow this. Let's grow this club. Let's not have 6,000 or 7,000 season ticket holders. Let's have 12,000 season ticket holders, and let's have 16,000 on a match day. And then I went to Home Park, Plymouth Argyle, at the weekend. 16,500. They're selling out week in, week out, and there's a great feel factor around the club. I want my club to be like that. I want us to build on this. I want young kids in and around Bournemouth to be able to come to Bournemouth games and to support their club and to wear a Bournemouth top, not a Man City top or an Arsenal top. And again, but that's a process. That takes years. That's 10, 15 years of a process. So I think at the minute we've got people that have those ambitions, but it's just one step at a time. And you're constantly thinking, right, let's invest money, let's spend, and let's do this. But we also need to be conscious that just by spending loads of money doesn't mean you're going to be in the Premier League. Yeah. And you just need to have one eye on the whole business and doing things properly.
So, as a fan, who is the South Coast's? Is it? Can I try? Look, I mean, it's a weird feeling, isn't it? We'll just briefly, because we'll wrap this up. But it's a strange feeling, isn't it? Because Bournemouth have always been the little brother, the kind of, let's pat you onto the, on the head. A few patronising comments here and there, money in buckets, all that kind of stuff. But for once, it looks like we're going to be, we're going to be the supreme side of all the South Coast clubs, excluding Brighton, of course. But it's a strange feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's brilliant, and it just goes to show this is what football is about. Portsmouth were in the Premier League for 9 seasons. Yeah. International players filled Fratton Park. And 20,000 people week in, week out. Same with Southampton. I remember I was there, Ronald Koeman taking them to 5th and 6th in the Premier League. 5th and 6th, Southampton. And look where they are now. Portsmouth in League One, didn't even make the playoffs. Southampton on the verge of heading to the Championship. And I think you just need to understand, football fans need to understand, that can happen to Bournemouth. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing, if things don't go well, that's football. Would you, this is a genuine question, like, if someone said to you, right, you can have 10 years finishing 12th in the Premier League, the next 10 years, every season.
Absolutely take it.
Or you could have, I say 12th, 17th. Okay. I'll tweak it slightly. Okay. 17th. Or you could have an 8th in the Premier League, a 12th in the Premier League, a relegation, promotion at Wembley, relegation, promotion at Wembley, 11th, 12th, relegation, promotion. That would be your next 10 years. What now? I know what I choose.
That's it. Yeah, I mean,
I would choose the success. I love the
But
Championship.
that's well exciting, though. What you just.
Oh yeah, that's the extreme. I've given you a scenario there that's very unlikely, but that's kind of like I love Championship football. I love watching the EFL. I love that pyramid system we have. I love the promotion in 2015, the promotion under Scott Parker, Kiefer Moore, bang bang, against Forest, all that stuff. That is what kind of fills you with memories. I remember the season we finished 8th.
No, 9th. Yeah.
9th. Southampton 8th.
Yeah.
Goal difference separated us.
We were on 46
Was that the
points.
Jack Wilshere season?
It was 46 points, and we're only 7 points away from that now.
Which is
so we've got 12 points maximum that we could get. I'm thinking now, could we equal our best ever season for a season that was bad for large parts?
Yeah, and that's
crazy.
it. So I think. Yeah, that's the thing. And what do I remember? I remember Chelsea 4-0. I remember Tyrone Mings and Zlatan at Old Trafford. I remember beating Liverpool 4-3, Ryan Fraser. I can remember bits of those campaigns, but ultimately it was just rolled into another Premier League survival campaign. But I remember 2003. I remember the Great Escape, the old Great Escape in the 90s. I remember Jermaine Defoe's, season 2000, 2001. Obviously the promotion under Eddie at Burton. Those campaigns are the ones that you almost kind of remember fondly compared to, getting turned over by half the Premier League and finishing 16th. Yeah. So, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, the principles of exciting, attractive football, young players. Let's make money as well. Let's buy players for 2 million, sell them for 22 million. I think that's great in the sense of football and business. We can turn a profit. Let's get more players like Jay-Z and Jaden and Anthony into our first team. Let's carry on developing the club, and let's build a legacy and an era, a dynasty and an era of, a club that people can be really, really immensely proud of, because we've just had the most incredible ride under Maxim, and we're at the start of a really new, exciting period under Bill Foley. And that's what I want to see from my club. But it's not my club, it's everyone's club. Exactly. And everyone would have a different opinion. And people would say, I just want to stay in the Premier League, I want to see us play sides. I just want to see attractive football and a sustainable club that's going to be there for generations to come. But there we go.
Interesting. Mark, it's been a pleasure to have you on. And so that was the context behind that tweet.
Honestly, criticism fine. Don't cross the line. That's unfair. And relentlessly crossing the line that's where it. I don't know how Gary O'Neill felt. I was hurt by it, and I've got no affinity to Gary O'Neill, by the way. He's the manager of Bournemouth, or the head coach of Bournemouth. Yeah. But I really was upset for a number of months about the abuse that was targeted at him, and I thought unfairly. And I think just come back, look at the bigger picture, and then you can make a more informed decision.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate having you on.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put you on the spot now. I know you like your social. Well, you're not into your social media, but you got Insta, you got Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in Tom's shoes. What can people do if they like the video?
Oh, subscribe. I know how to do that. Yeah, press that button wherever it is.
Down there somewhere.
Somewhere. Just subscribe. And if you don't, I'll send you a nasty tweet.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you what, you can have Tom's job. It's absolutely fine. Mark, it's been great to have you on. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm sure we'll see you soon. And who knows, we may even finish above Chelsea.
That'd be nice.
Thank you for watching. Up the Cherries, and we'll see you in the next one.